Hiya Hinsters, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome to I Am Hinny, a spiritual astrologer. You can check out the description below. If you are interested in my services, you can go to my website and find testimonials as well from clients who I've done readings for. And yeah, happy almost Aquarius season. Now, I haven't really scripted this video. I've got a few notes, but yeah, no script, and I'm doing this with my bed hair as often per usual. And let's just see. I have no idea how long this is going to be. I feel like there's a lot that I want to say for this one, for this season, this Aquarius season. So I will try to put timestamps below for those of you who don't like to wait. No judgment there. But for those of you who like to, skip to a particular thing, I'll put the timestamps there. But I've got my water. I hope you've got something nice as well to drink. Let me know in the comments what you're drinking. This is going to be the season of the water bearer, after all. So what are you drinking? What are you thinking about this upcoming season, and also about what you're going through right now? Tell me, share, how is your Capricorn season, for example. And by the way, please subscribe to this channel if you like what I do, if you like my sort of kind of spiritual astrology. I do practice Hellenistic or more traditional astrology. And yeah, give this video a thumbs up if you like it as well. This will really help me. And as I've been saying in a couple of my videos, actually around 90% of the people who view my videos are not even subscribed. So it would really, really, really help me if you did subscribe as well, just to show that extra layer of support and help me grow in that other way, as well as the other ways in which I'm growing. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. But we are, getting into Aquarius season now. As I film this, the sun is currently 29 degrees of Capricorn. Let me just show you. So hopefully this screen share works and you can actually see that, the sun, which is just, let's do some doodles, shall we? Okay, let's do some doodles. Move this, move that. Okay, ooh, I can change the color of the doodles. This is cool. Okay, yeah, there we go. We've got the sun here, you can see, at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So yes, there are 30 degrees which make up a sign, 30 days which make up a season, but really once we get to that 30th degree, we don't count it as 30, we count it as 0. So it's basically entered the next sign, the next season has begun in that solar sense. And so yes, we're about to leave Capricorn season and enter Aquarius season. Now, I also really wanted to say to those of you who have Netflix, or maybe you can find this film somewhere else, but it's not a plug for Netflix, by the way, not a sponsor, but you can, if you want, go and check out this film called The House. It's 2022 film, so obviously very recent, unless you're watching this video in like 2032, which I don't think you would be, but just in case, you can check it out, because I think it really has, I watched it very recently, I think it has some strong resonances, encapsulations of what Capricorn season quite often tries to highlight and illuminate for us as the sun goes through that cardinal earth sign, Capricorn, the the sign of the Mergoat. Without giving too much away, it really does have a lot of it's a bit dark, creepy, by the way, for those of you who are a bit too sensitive to these things. So I would put that out there. It has some sort of cruel twists to it. But that's actually also what Capricorn season is sometimes about for some of us. It is one of the dark feminine seasons after all. And Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which does deal with things like melancholy and oppositions as well. We've just come off a full moon, and what is a full moon in astronomy and astrology? It is the opposition of the moon and the sun. And Saturn rules oppositions, and so Saturn actually plays a huge part in the astrology of any full moon. So I think that's really important to keep in mind as we come off this full moon in Cancer, which I recently made a video on. And I talked a little bit about what that might mean for all of us based on where you have Cancer in your birth chart. So do check that out if you like. And full moons, they have an effect up to 2 weeks minimum effect after the official date of the full moon. And Saturn also deals with other things like avarice. And, I was really thinking about this the other day and how avarice is similar to, but different also, to things like greed or gluttony. And there's, with Saturn, this, and Capricorn as well, there's this hunger, this cardinal desire, which actually can come from a space of fear or insecurity. So sometimes it manifests as wanting to climb to a certain height out of that insecurity or fear. Sometimes it manifests out of wanting to show off something or someone from that same space. And Capricorn season always highlights these things for us. So yeah, back to that film, The House. It highlights some of these Capricornian, Saturnian things in the realm of things like the house, the literal house, but also the family, offspring, and the sort of contracts we have to be very careful about making with the universe, with ourselves, with others. Because as with any feminine season, like Capricorn, not all is what it seems. And with the Cancer Capricorn axis as well, we get a lot of this parasitic sort of potential. We get a lot of things, that build up in secret or under the floorboards that will kind of snap us later, like a crocodile that seizes the little chihuahua that's walking by the swamp, It's just Capricorn vibes. But anyway, as the sun is now moving into Aquarius, I've written this down in my notes, but by the way, we're coming out of not just a full moon, not just off a full moon, but we're coming out of or off this Sun-Pluto conjunction. So yes, dealing a lot with Sun-Pluto type things. Pluto is still in Capricorn, of course. It's the slowest moving of the sort of planets that we usually look at in astrology. So yes, it's still in Capricorn. And so there's been a lot of these incessant Plutonian, Capricornian things playing out for you wherever you have Capricorn in your chart. So those themes of the house you have Pluto in right now, have had Pluto in for years and years. They are still going on, but they may relatively soon, in a year or so, reach a sort of Plutonian crescendo, as Pluto also eventually reaches the anaretic degree, or the 29th degree, which is the degree you see here. that the sun is at. And so whatever you're kind of going through in your life, in your lot, whatever is being delivered and or taken right now, I think gives a clue to Pluto's part as well in that part of your chart, that part of your lot. Because the sun, of course, is about illumination and realization. And when it's in this anaretic space of the 29th degree, it's about to jump and move into the other sign. Yes, but it's also about this crescendo, again, effect, this culmination. Sometimes it's described as intensity before the jump is made, before the sort of change into a whole other energy is had. But I've noted down here anyway that we are contemplating the strategies for resolution once we get into Aquarius season. Contemplating the strategies for resolution. That's a very a typically Aquarian thing, strategy. And what's often said about Aquarius is, yes, joining the dots. But I'm just going to say it on my channel here, that Aquarius is not actually so much about New Age type stuff. It's not actually so much about groups. It's not actually so much about being like humanitarian even. It is still under a very Saturnian influence. This is Aquarius, ruled by Saturn. So really, what we're dealing with here is Capricorn and Aquarius seasons being the Saturn story of the sun. It's like part 2 of Saturn's say on what the sun is about. And what is the sun? Where is the sun right now? The sun, if I show you, the sun, yes, is making this opposition to Leo. Once it gets into Aquarius, it's going to make this opposition. Right now, as I film, we have had this moon opposing the sun in Capricorn, the full moon, but also the moon's in Leo right now, opposing planets like Mercury. And then later today, or actually right now, it's making this strong opposition. It's just come off the exact opposition with Saturn in Aquarius. And so this axis of Aquarius, Leo, it is this opposition of the sun and Saturn, really. Sun ruled Leo, Saturn ruled Capricorn and Aquarius. And so what do we get here? We get not something that has to burst out and boast as a strategy, but that which has to contemplate and go within as a strategy for resolution. So Aquarius season can actually be very quiet, detached, and remote for some people, sort of season. Depending on where you have Aquarius, by the way, in your birth chart, can be where this remoteness or detachment or going within, but paradoxically sort of also being quite hyperactive about it. That's the thing with Aquarius season. It's a masculine season. It's the last masculine season of the Astro-year. So there's this very big outwardness about it as well. And that can be where we get even more showy about those things. You know, whatever we did wrong in Capricorn season and have failed to rectify can be even more amplified in Aquarius season. It can be where we're even more oppositional, but this time outwardly, where we want to ostracize others outwardly or ostracize ourselves in a very Aquarian way, which can be quite intense actually. This is fixed air, so yes, it can become very dogmatic for some people. It can become incredibly stubborn, and also it can have this like, oh, you didn't expect that, did you? sort of thing about it with Aquarius. It can attack you from nowhere. As I was saying before, it's like the crocodile which eventually leaps out of the water or lunges out of the water and takes that chihuahua. That can be Aquarius season. And that's why I think we have to spend a lot of it contemplating the strategies for resolution versus trying to push or put ourselves out there too much or intensely. And, I was looking at the tarot and just some of the cards that I think represent Aquarius season, this time of the year, and also some of the cards that just came out. We've got the Ace of Pentacles. Hope you can see that. The Ace of Pentacles right there. This deals a lot with, I think, with ace cards, like the massive potential of something. And you see here, there's a big hand and that pentacle, with the star on it as well. That big coin, really, that represents sometimes the material, the potential material that is to come, that is so massive, that is so astounding or so impressive or so promising. But there has to be strategy behind it. And also with the pentacle and anything material, we're reminded of the trap that we can continue to put ourselves in. This is devil energy, Capricorn, goat energy, Saturn energy. Things that we might still be very much on the fence about. Things that we might still very much be struggling with in that oppositional sense. In a relationship, it could be, what do we continue to trap ourselves in, or other people in a job or career? What traps do we continue to fall in or lay for others? That kind of thing. And other things that, this is the sun card itself. And, in traditional astrology, when we think about the sun and where it is kind of at that point that is coming out of the lowest point in the sky. So if I just draw here, you've got this horizon. Imagine the sun in Capricorn season is like here, right? And then in Aquarius season, it's sort of trying to get here. So it's sort of starting to eventually rise back above the horizon, and then we'll eventually get that much more visible light. But the sun's still in this space of that Capricorn depth of really, really private, mysterious illumination and realization of things that really has killed the ego, has had to bury the ego. And again, if you watch that film I recommended, The House, you'll see some of these themes come up, like where you really have to suffer in some way, finally, due to the ego, or due to these more Cancerian or Leonite things that can really trip us up. Actually, the sun in traditional astrology is sometimes posited as the secret or secondary ruler of Cancer, which is really interesting. So we have both the moon and the sun ruling Cancer, and therefore we have the moon as the secret or secondary ruler of Leo. So again, both the moon and the sun ruling Leo. And so you get all these things associated with how we react and respond from that Cancerian space, and how we act out and, declare in that solar Leonite way from that kind of space, and all the kind of downfalls that can bring due to that very egoic and emotional space. So we're still coming out of that, what we've had to, or what we are having to realize in that Capricornian sense. but very, very slowly, light is returning, or illumination, realization, something genius perhaps is eventually going to break through. Or for some people, it's eventually going to be announced, declared. And we have the Star card as well, very often associated with Aquarius in the tarot. And yeah, water bearing. Aquarius is very often in the beginning confused to be a water sign, but it's not. It's the bearer of the water. It's the pourer out of the water. It's the let me contain the emotionality and the ego. Yes, let me carry on containing the ego. But to do that for some purpose, again, some strategy. There's some strategy, and this very often is a good time, Aquarius season, to put that strategy towards the eventual resolutions of ours. I talk so much on my channel about how this is not the time for New Year's resolutions. That's going to be later. Because what often happens is what we think is a resolution is just a trap that we have been continuing to put ourselves in every year. Again, a devil cycle. But it's not to blame or judge. It's just to realize that we haven't first strategized that thing that we want to be so resolute about. We've just sort of declared it, or we've fallen into some egoic or emotional desire to put out. And what happens is we can become in Aquarius season quite weird about it and intense, because, as I said, Aquarius is fixed air, so we can really go off the charts and too much with the particular things we're resolute about. So that's just a little warning that we often get at this time. So trying to keep it, I guess, in that strategic mode, in that boardroom, joining the dots mode right now, I think, and trying to contain the emotionality and the ego, and also the excitement, trying to contain the excitement just a bit longer, a couple months more, a little step further, and then to see how something really meaningful comes out of it later. And then we've got the Three of Pentacles as well. Again, Pentacles. We're still talking about Saturn, really, in Aquarius season. We're still talking about what we've built with others, what contracts we've made with others, with ourselves, with the universe, and what that actually means, and what that's actually going to construct, what it has actually constructed and actually manifested. So often we will see in Aquarius season big events or accidents or incidents that have to do with where we didn't listen to ourselves or another person, or where someone didn't listen to us, and there's some thing that happens, some culmination, which is always often this reflection of the opposition of the Sun and Saturn, of the ego and the anti-ego, and everything that lies in between, that dynamic. And it can be very shocking, because Aquarius energy, this is the season that is the last masculine season. So it can, in many ways, for many people, be the last, but also the most ferocious punch or punch line. So we have the uncomfortable Sun here, basically, because yes, the Sun is going to be opposite Leo, and Leo is where the Sun is at home, it is said, or in domicile. I think that's the better term, in domicile. But it's in detriment in Aquarius, for a lot of the reasons that I've just hopefully kind of illuminated. we are often tempted to associate the sun with the ego and getting what I want, illuminating who and what I want to. But there's often a heavy price with that. And also, I just wanted to talk about the tiger year as well. So for months and months, I've been talking in my videos, some of the Hinsters will know, about the ox year, which is almost done. Just a little leg more. And then we'll get into the tiger year. But like how in the ox year, Aquarius season is probably going to be the last sort of big ox year amplification. And I talked about months ago how whatever we've been fixating on, a path, a right way, we have had to make sure that it made sense to us in the long term. Not necessarily in some, and this is the danger as well, not necessarily in some big, grand, career building way, but just in a way that is more resonant with your spirit, your right way. And also something that is very much in tune with the knowledge that it's not like about the place you come, or the rank that you meet, or the title or accolade that you're given. It's not about that in the ox year. It's just about getting there. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because we're very like propelled by success and status. But that's what the ox year is actually about. And what people have found this year is that when we really resisted that and hated that fact, and when we use especially the fixed seasons, so Taurus season, Scorpio season, Aquarius season, and Leo season as well, when we use those seasons to really push the accelerator, we left relationships or left jobs in that stubbornness, and then later we realized it was really off track. Even if it was like in the same field, the same type of person that we returned to, we realized that it was never about leaving or jumping out or away from. It was actually more about just sticking with the pace of who I am, what I am, and where I am, and being content and comfortable with that. And like, it really is a year of, or was a year of, plodding along and getting through it, keeping your head down. And every time we try to, like, you know, throw our hair up in that very arrogant sometimes way, or like be haughty, or declare we quit the job, or we want to leave the person, we had to learn a harsh lesson, a lot of us, because we realized, it was never about that thing or that person or that place, that job. It was about something in us, or in our spirit, or something our guides was trying to teach us, to not make it about the ego or the shine, and to know that all of the, you know, in the Chinese astrology, all of the people arriving across that finish line, they were all invited by the divine to attend a banquet, a feast, whatever particular story we're talking about, version. They were all invited and all ordained. So whenever we try to, you know, and the ox year came out of the rat year, so it's no wonder that some of us were still stuck in that rat race. You know, the rat year was when the pandemic began. It's no wonder. Or when the pandemic really intensified, I should say, and became real for all of us. It's no wonder that we were remaining obsessive about certain goals. Again, it comes from, if you watch the house, you'll see, it comes from that space of insecurity and fear, that we want to build something or cling to something that is built or ascend some height on some mountain. Imagine some castle in the sky without really thinking strategically about it, really contemplating it. In traditional astrology, Saturn ruled the contemplators. This is what I'm learning on my course in my studies with Achyuta Bhavadasa. In Hellenistic astrology, we find these beautiful but not really spoken of truths about Saturn, the contemplator, the melancholic meditator, the melancholic mystic, and all the beauty that's within that, where we have to hold on a minute, slow down a bit, check ourselves and our pace and what it is that we're actually pursuing, and what Three of Pentacles, what contracts we're actually seriously putting ourselves in, and what is the actual thing that's going to come to us, because we have to know that it's going to be a very big thing. Whether we've put, it's a bit like the 2nd and the 8th house axis. This is what I'm getting right now to talk about. But in the birth chart, the 2nd, 8th house axis is really this axis of getting out what we put in, and putting in to get out. It's like a garden type of axis, or cooking type of axis. If you plant seeds, you get the plants, right? The crop. If you throw a certain number of ingredients together and cook them in a certain way, you get cooked food or baked goods. But it all depends, right? The outcome depends on exactly what we've been putting in. And so it's kind of like that. Coming out of Capricorn season into Aquarius season, we're about to, or we already coming off the full moon in Cancer, we already sort of realized where we have misplaced some investments, where we've misplaced certain seeds or ingredients, time even, because of the devil, because of certain pentacle type traps, and it can be very grand and dramatic for some people. For others, it's very mundane and minute, seemingly. For some people, it's just realizing that you really need to stop ordering takeaway food. For others, it's that you really need to stop attracting toxic people that you form romantic relationships with, that you romanticize. For some people, it's you really need to stop enabling gossip or enabling some kind of toxic behavior in your workplace or in your career, in your working life, in your dealing with clients. You really need to stop certain unhealthy symbiotic things as well. Don't forget that Capricorn is on that Cancer Capricorn axis. They deal, I mentioned earlier, they deal with this almost insidious thing. They deal a lot with parasitic things, yes, but also symbiotic things. I was looking at a meme the other day actually about anglerfish and how the males, when they find a female, they fuse with the female, because it's so deep and vast down there where they live that it's really critical that they do that as soon as they meet the female, they attach to it and they fuse with it, and they basically, their organs start to dissolve or whatever, and they begin to share the same bloodstream, and they get fed by now the female. So that's really interesting, but it's also very Cancerian, Capricornian sort of thing, this symbiotic thing that can happen. So we really have to be careful what it is, who it is that we latch onto during these seasons, because it has that sometimes that impossible to sever sort of ultimate feel to it in some ways. So it's like delete the takeaway app on your phone, or learn how to date healthily, learn how to recognize red flags in relationships. Or it could be, get a employment coach, or a career coach who helps you navigate those unhealthy, toxic things and helps you succeed and grow, right, in those spaces, and not remain in those devil cycles, which often come in the shape of contracts, things we seriously want to build out of serious spaces of insecurity, that fear, and sometimes that avarice. We want to cling to power, maybe, so we gobble up our prospects. That's really what we're doing. We gobble up our prospects, or we squander our legacy. In rat year, we did this a lot. This kind of avaricious, is that a word? Avaricious, it is a word, okay. Avaricious behavior, like habits you just cannot kick. That was really heavy in the rat year as well. And so going back to the ox year then, which is almost over, it's no wonder that, especially in these fixed seasons, Aquarius, which is a fixed season about to begin, it's no wonder that we can really turn the volume up at these points, because we came out of such an obsessive year. And we just need to remember, even at this last point, we just need to remember what is the right path in general. What is the path of least resistance as well for some people. It's about where can I just, because I mentioned also many months ago, I think in my ox year video, which I'll link if you want to watch that, there's also this dynamic which goes on, which is, what was I going to say? Let me have a sip of water. This dynamic of just accepting that some people are going to use you and manipulate you this year. When I say this year, I'm talking about February 2021 to the coming February of 2022. People were always going to get something out of you underhandedly. And with the ox year, there's this way in which you have to be, in one sense, okay with that. Because it might actually have something to do with you progressing, getting somewhere. There's this way in which the ox year has highlighted to us that not every win or gain is had from using people or using things. It can actually be had by just being yourself, right? Just plodding along and not really being phased by those less desirable rat traits, shall we say. Okay, so yes, we're gonna have the tiger year coming up very, very, very soon. And we have to be really careful, because Aquarius season marks the threshold of, have we really done the right calculations when it comes to where we're going, where we want to be even. Because if we haven't done the right calculations, what's going to happen is, again, that volume up, that acceleration, and that weird Aquarian, let me pounce out and disseminate. Sometimes it's like disseminate my message intensely. With Aquarian energy, we can find a lot, I mentioned before, dogmatic people, yes, but also a lot of really crazy sort of cult people, cult leaders, who can lead you down a very, very bad path. And yes, again, that can be in the very grand sense, or in just the sense of an individual in your life who whose wackiness has you doing something you really didn't want to be doing, but here you are finding yourself doing it. And you can't stop. That's Aquarius. And sometimes, we do associate Aquarius sometimes with Uranus. And interestingly, Uranus just recently went direct in Taurus, another fixed sign. We do associate these Uranus with true freedom or true free will. And I'll always remember, which I'm going to link for you if you want as well. Lots to link. I've been like writing in my journal the past few days, all these sort of strategies and formulas to work with people better, like more efficiently in terms of communication, in terms of relations, in terms of all sorts of stuff. It's very psychological, very sort of tactical, strategic, but just squirreling it away in my head or in a journal, and just keeping it there and sifting through it rather than pouncing too soon or too quickly, and just, I guess, figuring out what actually works and what is just not going to work. But yes, I'll always remember Alyssa and now the Divine Venus, and in one of her videos where she talked about Uranus as this embodiment of true freedom or free will. And what she talks about is we have to be careful with Uranus, because wherever we're being taken, and with Aquarian energy and Aquarius season, wherever we're being taken, blasted off, there's very often no point of return, or it's really hard to undo what was said. And remember, this is a masculine season, the last masculine season, so it really can be where we get a lot of stupid people, or we say a lot of stupid things, which we regret. When Pisces season comes, we just want to bury our heads in the sand. We just want to go to sleep forever. We want the world to swallow us up. Or we want to act like we never said that. Piscean distraction and escapism and evasion. We want to be like, I never said that. I never did that. So that kind of thing can really happen if we're not careful. We have to, again, it's like the ox-year and finishing up the ox-year before tiger-year starts, knowing that we're comfortable with where we're headed, even if we don't have all the details, like the rat wants to obsess over, right? We don't have all the details. We can't ever. And we don't necessarily have ourselves in the top position or whatever. Remember, it's not about that. But as long as we've kind of made peace with that, the cow, the bull, the ox, very placid usually, peaceful usually, beasts, and also the beast of burden, having to burden the chit-chat of the rat and be okay with it, be at peace with it. Can you feel a lot of Taurian energy as well coming through? Venus ruled, actually, energy coming through. There's all that to keep in mind right now in Aquarius season. That is one thing Taurus teaches Aquarius as well, actually, because these two signs square each other in the sky. So it's always yeah, you might have a fixation, but Taurus is do you have peace and beauty and just common sense in mind as well? Or are you just a wacky, crazy person going off the charts in some sense? Because tiger year is the year of pouncing, and I do feel a lot of people in my personal life are going, in this 2022 to 2023 year, they are going to pounce in some really, really big way. This can be the year where people really come out in some sense, where people really kill in their career or in their field. It can be where someone just really stands up for themselves. It can be where people finally find a pursuit. And the Ox-year has been so much about finding the fixation, right? So once we've found that fixation, it can be about really jumping on it, really diving into it, and focusing like an entire year on what we finally decided we're going to fixate on. And the dagger isn't going to mess around. It can be rough and raw and terrifying. And so that's why I say for some of us, we have to get those ox things in order. We have to have dealt with at least some of the things that Capricorn season and this recent full moon have brought up. Deal with them. Pluto, things that have been brought up, let's try to deal with them, process them, let them breathe, and keep that ox just for a few more months. Keep that ox mentality or space of pace, your pace that is most right to you. And kind of not being taken away by the static. That can happen in Aquarius season as well. The static just takes us away. And we can either get very lost, thrown off, or we can become very delusional as well. We can become very arrogant as well, of course. But it's really, really outwardly arrogant and really teaching us something, because Aquarius season is about just realizing the sun, realizing that you've already taken this person to the water. You've shown them how to drink or how to fish. Now it really is up to them. You've applied all the strategies and formulae in your job or in your relationship. You've done everything. Now it's time for you to do that stepping back and that strategic contemplation and kind of sussing out how in a few months' time you're going to move, pounce. And sometimes it's a move or pounce away from that job, that relationship, finally, or that situation, that space, whatever it is. But to know that it's not time to fuss over people anymore, or try to control. Capricorn season, try to control outcomes and perceptions and reactions. It's not a cardinal, it's going to be fixed now. So you don't want to fix on controlling people. You want to have dealt with the devil and get more into this, finally I'm free, at least in the mind maybe, or at least in the heart, I'm finally free in some sense. And I can just fixate now. And also I can see what's in front of me now very clearly. Maybe other people can't, but I can. And that's fine, that's just what it is. We all arrive at the party at different times, right? But we're all going to get to the party. And some people leave the party. And that's fine too, that's part of life. So, and also sometimes it's not just about, oh, I've taught someone how to fish, they should know by now. Check yourself. Where is it that you have been brought to the water so many times by someone, but you refuse to listen? Right? You couldn't contain that emotionality or ego, the containment which could possibly lead to, your healing in some cases, or lead to you resolving something finally, or getting a wish even attained. Where is it that you refuse to see when other people point it out to you? This is outdated, this is toxic, this is pointless. Yes, you're putting a lot of money or art or skill into it, but is it really for you? Or is it really in your best interests? Is it really what you believe in, what you're about? And some people in Tiger Year, they're going to get really, really angry about the certain contracts that they've been stuck in, and there is going to be blood for those people, and there's going to be fights and fire. So sometimes it is about like, where have I refused to see the possibility for the implementation of the strategy, and not just learned the strategy, read the book, but not like done anything about it? Where have I just been quite proud as well? The Aquarius Leo axis. Proud, and that's the sun, proud, and stuck in that melancholy, Saturn, or stuck in that coldness, Saturn. It's really Aquarius, Capricorn seasons. They really teach us often in quite hard ways how to get the frig out of that ego and melancholy axis, that opposition, and how to learn to get a handle on it. Okay. I think I've said quite enough. But, let me know where you have Aquarius in your birth chart. And let me stop this share. Yes, okay. Let me know where you have Aquarius in your birth chart, and let's discuss like what kind of themes might come up for you in this season. Lots of love, and I hope you have a nice weekend and beginning of Aquarius season. Take care.